Or not, here we go. The time is calm, 6 o'clock. Thank you guys for being here. As you guys all probably saw from the heading, this is going to be my last video on YouTube. And I barely made it in time. And as you can see, I'm sweating like a dog here. It's hot in Arizona today. I think it got up to, what was it, about 110, 112, somewhere. But it was a scorcher, and I was outside getting some stuff done and barely made it in time. But thank you guys for joining. I'm just kind of going to wait for a few more minutes for some people to get in here. But I just thought I would come on tonight and do one last YouTube live and hopefully inspire a few people. You know, it could have been easy for me just to say I'm done and walk away and just not do anymore, but I feel like I owe it to all you guys who have been so loyal and faithful for so long now. Over 5 years. It's hard to believe that it's been that long, but it's been an incredible journey. You guys have been my friends, and I've taken a lot of strength from you guys over the course of this journey. So thank you guys, and hopefully I can say a few things tonight that will help inspire you guys and help you along your journey. I don't pride myself in being some great speaker or great video producer or anything like that. I'm just a guy who got on YouTube and just tried it and, you know, had a little bit of success, and maybe hopefully along the way I've inspired some people, I hope, because I know you guys have inspired me. And if you guys hear something in the background, I have a fan going because, like I said, it's really hot here in Arizona and I'm not going to be able to turn it off, but I'm going to put my glasses on here so I can see what's going on. But I'm going to see how long this goes. I don't really have a script. I just thought I would speak off the cuff or by the Spirit, however you want to put it tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and just see where it goes. But I had some ideas of what I could do is talk about each one of these cases and how they've influenced my life and how everything kind of unfolded. I'm going to talk about the Suzanne Morphew case last, but I hope you guys stick around because, you know, we've talked about all of these cases together over the years, and we've all become attached to the people involved. And the first one I wanted to talk about tonight is JJ and Tylee. Of course, that is the Chad Daybell, Lori Daybell case. And give you a little bit of background on how, you know, how and why I became involved with that. Kind of having a little bit of a hard time getting started here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize. I'm really just kind of sweating up a storm, and I'm a little more nervous than what I normally am. I don't know why. Maybe because I know this is the last time I'm going to do it, and I'm trying to keep a lot of thoughts and emotions in check right now. But if I could take you guys back to 2020, when COVID first hit, that's about the time that I was going through a really hard time personally in my personal life. A lot of things that happened leading up to that. And I found myself living in a situation that I wasn't really accustomed to. And I'll just tell you guys right out, I was living in my car. And it wasn't because I didn't have a house. It was because I did it by choice. But when COVID hit, I knew something just didn't feel right in the universe, and I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I was just kind of living day by day and trying to figure things out like a lot of us were. But what I was doing to pass the time is I was studying some of these true crime cases, and so one of them was the JJ and Tylee case, or the Chad Daybell case. And one of the reasons I was so into that one was because it was in Arizona. Really just a lot of the stuff that happened in that case was just right down the road from where I was staying. But I was looking at it. It really blew my mind because it hit home in so many different ways with the religion. I don't know how many of you guys know this. I don't know how much you guys know about me and my personal life and my background, because I know I've given you guys bits and pieces over the years, but I don't know if you know that I grew up Mormon, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I was very active. I grew up in a small town here in Arizona. Population was only about less than 5,000, probably about 3,000. It was a small Mormon community. It is a small Mormon community. And I went to church every Sunday, and I never missed, and I was really into it. And when I turned 19, I went on a mission for the church. I went to go serve out in the field, is what they call it. And I got called to the Caribbean islands. And I went to Barbados, and I spent a year on the island of Barbados knocking on doors and riding bicycles around the island. And it was a really good experience for me. I grew a lot. I learned a lot about myself. It helped me a lot with my people skills. I didn't have a lot of people skills. I was pretty shy. Believe it or not, I was pretty shy. And I didn't have a lot of let's just put it this way, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't really have any confidence in myself. I always thought that other people spoke better than me or were smarter than me or whatever. I always put myself last. And so this was a stepping stone for me to get out and talk to people and meet people in the streets. And I became really converted to the religion, even more so. And then I went to Trinidad, and I went to Guyana, South America. And after 2 years, I came back home, and I got married, like a lot of the young Mormon missionaries do. And I was married for 10 years to a woman that I met, really a girl. I mean, we were young. We were very young when we got married. And we got married, and we started out and did the whole Mormon thing, you know, went to church every Sunday and the whole 9 yards. And we had 3 beautiful children, and they're all turning into adults now. It's hard to believe, ladies and gentlemen. But after 10 years, there's a lot of things that I'm going to skip over, but after 10 years, me and my wife, we went separate ways. It wasn't really my choice per se, it was more her choice. I became a basketball coach at the same school that I went to. I was the head varsity boys basketball coach and PE teacher. And a lot of stuff happened in this small town that, you know, small town politics are rough. But I was coaching, and I made a lot of people upset because I didn't do it the old-fashioned traditional way, where you just played the kids based on their last name or their religion or whatever. I played the best kids. Didn't matter what their race was or their religion or what their last name was. I played the best kids, and I tried to give everybody an equal opportunity. Well, that didn't sit right with a lot of the community members, and I made a lot of people mad because I didn't give their kids enough playing time or whatever. And there were some other politics and dynamics involved, but that's basically the gist of it, ladies and gentlemen. And we did well as a team. Nobody gave us a snowball's chance as a team because I didn't have any returning seniors, or I didn't have a lot of experience at the head coach level. But we got in there and we did really well. Me and the boys, the players, we did really well. But what happened is when I went to the state tournament, my wife stayed home, and when I was there coaching, I ran into this gal that I went to college with. She was married and she had her own little family, and she was living in the town that we were in. And she came up to me and she gave me a hug and she said, "How you doing?" You know, she started talking to me, and it was just totally friendship. Just totally, you know, platonic, catching up with an old friend. And I had some of these people that were upset with me, these members of the LDS church, that started texting my wife and telling her that I was having an affair with this woman, which was totally false. It wasn't even close to the truth. And if it was, ladies and gentlemen, I would be man enough to admit it, but that never happened. And it created a lot of drama and a lot of problems. But anyway, and I'm going to tie all this together with religion and everything else as we go on here, but I wanted to give you some background. And so we ended up getting a divorce. And so I stayed single for 5 years after that. My kids were young, and I devoted all my time and attention to them. I kept teaching, but what happened is I had to start kind of bouncing around because you know how the rumors get started, and people are very evil. People are very vindictive and very evil, unfortunately, and they started a lot of rumors, and it was unfair. It wasn't right. But I hung in there for my kids, and I coached their little league baseball teams. I, you know, spent almost every day with them. I had custody, you know, partial custody of them, where we were on this schedule, and I spent a lot of time with them and all that. So anyway, we did that for 5 years, and after 5 years, I decided I was going to try to start meeting people again. And so I got on this LDS website and the singles site, and I met this gal from Southern Colorado, and we hit it off right away. And we started talking on the internet. We started talking on the phone calls. And after a short time, I flew up to Denver, and we met in person, and we hit it off. It was great. We went out to eat. We spent time together in downtown Denver. It was just wonderful. We hit it off right away. It was kind of like when two soulmates meet. You know, it was one of those type of things. And I was ready. You know, it had been 5 years, and she was ready, and everything just went great. And so what I told this individual was that I told her my situation, obviously, that I had 3 young kids in Arizona, and I wasn't leaving, that I was there to stay. I was there to take care of them, and I made them a promise that I would never leave them. And she had some kids. She had some boys, some young boys. And so we made this agreement that she would move out to Arizona and bring her boys with her. And we would start a family together. And we would, you know, do the whole family like the Brady Bunch type thing. But that's what happened. We got a house, and we got all settled. We got the boys in school. My kids were already in school. They were already settled. Everything was rolling. And I was really happy. I was really happy for the first time in a long time. And she seemed like she was really happy too. And the boys, like I said, they were getting adjusted. We were the Mormon family, the LDS family. We were going every Sunday. We were totally 100% into it. Well, about 8 months into that, I went to work one day. I was working as a PE teacher on the reservation here in Arizona. And about let's say 7 months into it, I got a text message from her that it was a picture of a pregnancy test. And she said, congratulations, we're going to have a baby. And I at first, my initial reaction was like, oh my gosh, we've already got enough kids. You know, what are we going to do? I was kind of scared, you know, I could feel my heart like pounding out of my chest. But I said, you know what? That's wonderful. I said, this is great. This is exciting news. I'm so happy. And I said, this was on a Wednesday. I'll never forget it. And I said, on Friday night, we're going to go out to eat. We're going to celebrate. And we're going to just make the best of this. Because we're a family and we're going to pull together and we're going to be strong and we're going to do this. And that's exactly what we did, ladies and gentlemen. And the following week, I went to work. And like I said, I wasn't working here in town. I was working on the res, which was about an hour drive. And I came home and she had packed up all of her stuff and left. And just left me. And she was only about, I don't know, maybe like a month pregnant. And I couldn't get a hold of her for like 2 or 3 days. I was just totally going crazy, totally beside myself. Didn't know what was going on. Didn't know what had happened. Was just 100% terrified. Well, finally she answered the phone. She answered the phone after about 2 or 3 days and said she wanted a divorce. And I tried to talk some sense into her and find out what was going on. And she didn't really tell me why. She just said, well, because, you know, I just want to come home. I miss my home. And she was also from a very small Mormon town in southern Colorado called Manassas. And so anyway, I said, okay, well, this isn't what I want. I love you. I miss you. I'm heartbroken. But it was way more than that, ladies and gentlemen. I completely collapsed on the floor. I was in the fetal position for 3 days, didn't eat or drink or anything for 3 days. I missed work. I was a complete disaster. But I'm just giving you kind of the sugar-coated version here. And so anyway, after a short time, a day or so, she changed her mind and she says, oh, I don't want a divorce. I want to stay together, but you have to move up here to Colorado. And I said, I can't do that. I got my kids here. Well, I didn't say that initially because I was kind of like so desperate in that moment that I would take anything that she gave me. And so I kind of said, okay, well, let me figure some stuff out. You know, I'm working here. I got to talk to my kids and all that. But when I went and talked to my kids here, they were crying and saying, you know, no, Dad, we don't want you to go. We'll miss you. We don't want you to go. Please don't go. And all the while, she was begging me to go up there. Come up here. Leave your kids. Just come up here. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, make a long story short, we did that for about 1.5 years. And I tried it. I went up there, drove up to Colorado every other weekend. Every chance that I got, I would go up there and try to make it work with her. The whole 9 months that she was pregnant. And I even went to the ultrasound all the way to the 9th month. We took pictures with our hands on her stomach, and we were excited. And she told me that, you know, everything was great, that we were going to figure this out somehow. So I came back to Arizona, and she had the baby, and she didn't tell me about it. She kept it secret, and she gave the baby a different last name. She lied to everybody in her town. She was telling them one thing, she was telling her parents one thing, she was telling me another, and it was just a total disaster. And I found out that she had the baby secondhand from somebody else, and it completely devastated me. And she completely shut me out again and wouldn't let me see the baby. She wouldn't let me come and visit. Well, we did that for a while, and then finally she let me come see the baby. And I saw my daughter. My daughter's name is Jersey. But she always kept me confused. Like, what are we doing here? Like, one day it was hot and cold, you know. It was like, I would love the baby. I'd hug her. I'd hold her, spend time with her. And then she would, like, tell me, don't ever come back again or whatever. So we did that for a while. Well, then there came a time where she just finally went to the courts and blocked me out of her life completely and just said, "You're not ever going to see your daughter again." And I said, "Why? What's going on? What did I do?" And she said, "Because you chose to stay in Arizona and not come up here and be with me." And that's what she did. And I haven't seen my daughter in 9 years, almost 9 years. And I want to show you something, ladies and gentlemen. This hangs up on my wall here at my house every day. That's me and my daughter. Right there. And I got a picture of her right here in my house. And I check up on her as much as I can to see what's going on. And I think about her every day. This situation completely ripped my heart out. And I think it kind of drove me to the point where I didn't know what to do. I kind of went crazy a little bit. And that's where I said, okay, I'm going to just rent my house out and I'm going to go out on the road and I'm just going to try to figure some things out. And that's about the time that COVID hit, right before COVID hit. And now I'm going to try to get you guys all back up to speed here. And so I was staying in my car in a Walmart parking lot in Mesa, Arizona. And like I said, I had my house, I had it rented out. I planned on coming back to it at some point, but I rented it out to a young single mother that had 2 young girls. And while I was out there on the road, she asked me if I would sell it to her. And so that's what I did. I ended up selling it to her at a very discounted price, gave her a great deal on it, and to try to help her out with her little girls. But for 3.5 years, I stayed in my car in the Walmart parking lot. 3.5 years, ladies and gentlemen. I ended up buying another house by the grace of God. I was able to scrape up enough money and get another house, a fixer-upper. And for the last, few years or whatever, I've been fixing this one up. But that was a really challenging time in my life, as you guys can imagine. And I wanted to die. I didn't know if I wanted to kill myself or if I was just hoping that somehow I would die naturally or whatever, but I just didn't want to be on this earth anymore. I was 100% depressed. I was devastated. My whole world had collapsed. And I found myself living in a car in the Walmart parking lot. And so I started, around the time COVID hit, I started studying this Lori Vallow case, started looking at it, and I started having these really strong feelings in my heart and in my head and in my my gut, I guess, about this case. Like study it more, get into it. So I was looking at it, I was studying it. It was really bizarre because you had all these coincidences, all these things that were hitting home with religion and Arizona and everything else. And so I decided that I was going to go up to Chad Daybell's house and just go see what was going on. I know, when I was watching the videos and looking at everything on the internet, I could see his house and you kind of get an idea in your head. And I know you guys have done this too. But when you start looking at these places, the houses or the buildings where these crimes are committed and where these stories are happening, you start to use your imagination. And so my imagination was running wild about what Chad Daybell's house was like in his town and everything. So I said, I'm going to go up there. So that's what I did, ladies and gentlemen. I went up to Chad Daybell's house. And when I was there, I want to tell you about some of the things that happened when I was there. When I got to his house, there was a little road just off to the side of his house, and there was a ditch and there was a fence right there, and there was several cars that were lined up along that road, and there was kind of like rubberneckers, like people that were just standing out there looking. And what was going on at his house at that time is you had the FBI and the local police. They were digging in his backyard while I was there. They were looking for JJ and Tylee, and I think they had just barely found them, is what I think happened, like the day before I got there. But they were still digging around, like I guess they had a burn pit, as you guys all know the story. But it was a really interesting experience, very surreal, talking to the people along this road, these locals. They were telling me about all the things that had happened leading up, with Lori being there. And so there was a couple of kids that showed up with their mom, and they had made these little posters for JJ and Tylee. And I don't remember what they said, but they had flowers and they were little drawings and stuff, and they wanted to leave them on the fence where people were leaving flowers and teddy bears and everything on the fence. And so I talked to those little boys and interviewed them a little bit. They were so cute, but there were so many people there started showing up and putting stuff on the fence for JJ and Tylee. And another thing that happened was I kept noticing this woman walking back and forth from the house across the street over to Chad Daybell's, because they were moving a bunch of stuff at that time. Like they were moving Chad Daybell's stuff out. He had just got arrested the day before I got there as well. And so it turned out that it was his daughter Emma and her husband, and they were moving, I guess they were moving into the house, and so they were moving all of Chad Daybell's stuff out, and they had the elders quorum, and you guys may not know what that is, but it's people that come over from the church to help. And I could have easily went into the house and just, kind of pretended like I was a part of the elders quorum and helped them move furniture and all that. They probably wouldn't even have known, but I was trying to be professional, trying to act like the rest of the journalists that were there, even though I was just some, YouTuber or whatever. So I stayed out in the street, and when I saw this woman coming across carrying this baby, I went up to her and I said, "Are you Emma? Are you Chad Daybell's daughter?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, I want you to know that there's a lot of people who are looking down on you guys, of course, and you know that, you feel that, and you see that. And I said, that's very unfortunate, because you're kind of like collateral damage. But I said, there's a lot of people too, a lot of good people in this world, who feel really bad and feel really sorry for you guys, you kids who are caught up in this. And I said, I just want you to know that there's a lot of people who love you, and they pray for you, they think about you. And when I said that, she immediately just like pretty much jumped in my arms and gave me the biggest hug and started crying, just like tears down her cheeks. And she said, "Thank you so much for saying that." And it just really hit me, ladies and gentlemen. It hit me really hard how much these people in these situations need our love and need our support. And they got enough to worry about. They got enough hatred. They got enough hurt and pain going on and grief, that sometimes just the smallest little things can make the biggest difference. And I think it was the next day when I ran into Chad Daybell's son. His name's Garth, and he came out, and I actually talked to him by the street and kind of told him the same thing. But it's just really unfortunate that these cases, there's so many people who are affected by this, not just the victims, but the families and so many others. And it's just really sad to see. But as you all know, and as the years have gone by, there's been justice served for so many people in that case. Tammy Daybell, who, by the way, came around that corner of that house that day that she was coming from Relief Society, and somebody pulled a gun on her and tried to shoot her that day and kill her right there in the driveway, but the gun jammed. And of course, we all know that was Alex Cox trying to kill her that day. And so it was crazy to be there and see all this stuff that you read about or that you were seeing on the internet or the TV. and actually be there and experience it. But yeah, there was justice for Tammy Daybell, justice for JJ and Tylee, justice for Charles Vallow. You know, I'm sure I'm forgetting some people, but just justice all across the board in that case, ladies and gentlemen. So, you know, I'm thankful for that. It was crazy to be a part of it. I'm not really sure why I was there or, you know, how I got involved, but it taught me so much, you know, to serve other people and to kind of like take their problems on your shoulders and try to help them kind of forget about your own problems. And it was a really, in that regard, it was a really cool experience. And so anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to move on to now the Nick Cordova case. Right about that same time, it was, you know, right after Suzanne Morphew disappeared, that's when Nick Cordova was killed in Gilbert, Arizona. And as you all know, I went and got involved in that case too by interviewing Alicia Cordova, his wife, at Gilbert Air, and that's kind of what started our friendship. But one of the things that happened, you know, during this time was I started talking to Alicia Cordova on the phone pretty much every night. I was kind of like her shoulder to cry on as I was living in the Walmart parking lot, sleeping there. And I had a job. I was driving back and forth to Miami, of course not Miami, Florida. We actually have a Miami, Arizona, and I was teaching school there. And it was during COVID. The kids were doing it remotely, but I was getting on the computer and teaching them. I'm sure you guys that have been following me for a long time will remember that, but pretty much every night I was talking to Alicia Cordova, and I was listening to her, you know, her cry and talk about her grief and her hurt and her pain. And we developed a really strong friendship. And there was never in my heart and in hers either, there was never a romantic type of thing. It was more of just a friendship. And our friendship became very strong. And all you guys remember, you guys actually helped out with this, where I did this toy drive for that first Christmas after Nick was killed. We did a toy drive where we got a whole bunch of toys. You guys raised a whole bunch of money and sent it to me, and we had Alicia Cordova put together a wish list for her kids, and her kids were still pretty young at this time. And you and I, mostly you guys, all of you guys donated money because you guys are so fantastic. And we were able to check off every one of those things on Alicia Cordova's Christmas wish list for her kids. And we bought them toys. And I drove them up to Flagstaff. They were staying up there, and I took them up to Flagstaff and delivered them for them. And for 5 years, Alicia Cordova and I have maintained a really strong friendship. And I had a long time to analyze my feelings for her. Was it more than just a friendship? What was it? And I think recently, now that so much time has passed, I've been able to kind of put my finger on it. And it was kind of like a trauma bond for both of us. You know, all the things that I had been through personally and all the things that she was going through, we had like this trauma bond. It was this strong bond, like kind of like a brother-sister type thing, but it was more than that. I was kind of like a protector for her. I looked out for her. I looked out for her kids, and I thought about them a lot over the years. And we would go long stretches without talking, but I would always wish her a happy Mother's Day or whatever, and every once in a while I'd just send her a text to see how the kids were or how she was doing. And then over the last couple weeks, I started to explore those feelings a little more for her. And I started to analyze them more and say, is this more? What is this? You know, what is it? And I wanted to be honest about it with myself, but I also wanted to be honest with her. And so I noticed that as I started becoming more political on TikTok and talking about politics more, I could tell that there was something that wasn't right with our relationship. Like everything was cool, you know, like we would still talk, but I noticed, and I think what was happening in my mind is that she was catching a lot of flack from other people about me and my politics. You know, because especially here in Arizona, you know, with immigration and stuff like that, you got a lot of people who view the world differently, and we'll just keep it that way. You know, like we don't all see the world the same way. And so I just kind of tried to balance this for the longest time, like try to help Alicia Cordova solve this case and get justice for Nick, but at the same time, try to not like influence it too much to where it pushes people away or makes people mad at her. And so finally I just, you know, I asked her the other night, and I was like, and I kind of told her my true feelings, and I said, Alicia, look, like I have these strong feelings for you, and it's not a romantic or a sexual or a perverted thing in any type of way, but I just want you to know that I really care about you and your kids a lot. And I said, how do you feel about it? And she was honest with me about her feelings too. And they kind of matched up, you know, our feelings kind of matched up. It was kind of a mutual thing. But she was honest with me, and she said she doesn't support the person that I do politically, or she doesn't feel the same way. And our worldview is like totally different. And I respected that. You know, I totally respected that, and it didn't change the way I felt about her at all. But I told her, I said, you know, I can't continue to try to help you with, you know, raise noise for Nick, because you got all these people who hate me, all these, you know, these liberals and people who are coming at me all the time. They're getting mad at you, and it's affecting. So I think you're just going to have to go and try to do it alone now. Well, luckily, ladies and gentlemen, she was starting to get so much momentum that she doesn't really need me anyways. And so I was like, it was like the perfect time for her to just kind of go do her thing and I'll do mine. But I wanted to share that with you guys because I just thought it was a special thing that happened. One of these crazy things that happened too. And I was honest with her. I told her that I was staying in my car, you know, and she didn't judge me. She didn't look down on me at all. It was just a really cool experience that happened, and another one of those really deep, life-changing things. And if it had been something shallow, then it wouldn't have lasted this long. But we've been friends, and it's been solid for over 5 years. And I'll always consider her a friend. But I did tell her that I'm going to have to bow out with the true crime stuff. And she's going to have to just kind of do it alone. And I'm not going to do any more true crime stuff. I'm just going to see where life takes me, you know, moving forward. But I wish that there would be justice in that case. It breaks my heart every day that, you know, to watch her. I know how much she grieves. I know how much she hurts raising those beautiful kids by herself. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that case is pretty much at a standstill. I don't know, the Gilbert Police Department, as you guys know, we've talked about it a lot on here, but they just haven't been great. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But that leads me to pretty much the last case, ladies and gentlemen, the Suzanne Morphew case. And this was, of course, the big one. Now, I know I've already kept John here for 40 minutes telling you all this stuff, and I'm sweating like crazy, probably because I'm nervous. I didn't think I was going to go so in depth with all this stuff, but I want you guys to understand in closing in this last video how this all happened, and, you know, kind of Maybe it'll be inspirational to some people and help you in your own personal lives in some way. But how I got involved with the Suzanne Morphew case, you guys already know the story, but I'm going to give you some more details. When I was going back and forth to Colorado, now my ex up there, she wasn't letting me see my daughter, and so now I was in the courts. I was fighting. I was draining all the money that I have, all my savings, all my 401k, everything that I had was going towards trying to fight to see my daughter. And it was during one of these trips that I was up there that I stopped in this beautiful town called Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And I like to stop there because they have these natural hot springs, and it's just a beautiful place. If you guys have never been, I recommend it. But I was sleeping in my truck in a grocery store parking lot in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And I was already neck deep into the, like I said, into the other cases. And all of a sudden, I saw something pop up about this new case that had just happened about 3 weeks before this. It was involving a 40-year-old single or mother of two from Maysville, Colorado. She went on a bike ride and never returned. And so I started looking at it and reading it. And from the very beginning, ladies and gentlemen, I'll never forget it. I was laying in the back of my truck, reading it on my phone about this case. Something wasn't sitting right with me. I had a feeling that something wasn't right. And so I started looking at where I was geographically from where this was all taking place. And I thought, well, if it's close enough, I'll go back up there and take a look and see what's going on. And when I looked, it was like backtracking and I drove pretty much all day that day. I drove for hours, and I had to backtrack a long ways. And so I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't really have the money. I'm tired. I just want to get back to Arizona. But I'm not going to say no. I'm going to sleep on it. And if I wake up in the morning and that feeling's still there, then I'll consider it. If not, I'm going back to Arizona. Well, when I woke up the next morning, the feeling was still there, but it was a lot stronger this time, ladies and gentlemen. And so I said, well, I can't back out now. And so I drove all the way back up to Maysville, Colorado. And you guys pretty much know the rest of the story. But when I got there, I was completely lost. And if you want to go back and watch my videos, you're welcome to, but I'll never forget getting up to Maysville. It's the most beautiful place. It's even more beautiful than Pagosa Springs, in my opinion. I found this little schoolhouse, and being a teacher, I just thought it was the coolest thing. It was this old schoolhouse from like the 1800s or the turn of the century, early 1900s, that they had restored, but it had all the original glass in it and everything. The windows, the outhouse in the back, everything was really, really cool, really original. And so I really fell in love with this place. It was like, wow, man, Maysville is awesome. And they have like this little, not really little, it's more like a bigger river that runs through, Salida, the Arkansas River. Such a beautiful place. And I fell in love with it. And I started looking around this schoolhouse, and I was looking in the windows, and I saw all the old desks in there. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I went up a little higher up the mountain. They have a ski resort up there. And I went up all the way up by the ski resort. I went too high. I went too far, and I didn't know it. I passed right by Barry Morphew's house. And when I came back down, I was making some videos. I think they're still up. I hope they are. I think they're still up somewhere. But I came back down. I parked my truck right there at the 225 and the 50, right there where everybody parks to go mountain biking. And I noticed a truck that was parked there. And you guys have all heard this story. In fact, you just heard me tell it on one of my last videos, but I'm going to tell you again. It ended up being Barry Morphew's truck. But when I got there was nobody around. It was quiet. And it was kind of raining a little bit, and the rain was coming in sideways. But it wasn't raining hard enough to like get me soaking wet. It was just kind of like making my shirt kind of wet. And I looked around and I was making a video and I was telling you guys, I was saying, hey, and right up there, and I was pointing, I said, right up there is Barry Morphew's house, and I didn't know which one it was yet. And I went past the truck and I looked in it, looked in the back, and I didn't see anybody around anywhere. I didn't hear anybody, nothing. I walked about maybe 20 yards, 15 yards. I came around the corner, I started walking down, and all of a sudden I heard that truck start up. I looked back, I said, wow, where'd these people come from? I said, there was nobody there. I said, oh, whatever. But I was kind of nervous because, you know, I mean, what the heck am I doing up there? Like, what am I doing up there? They already did this big search, and, you know, the police have got it handled, apparently, and I didn't know what I was doing up there, but I just felt deep in my soul that that's what I needed to do. And I want to say this, ladies and gentlemen, in case I forget. That one decision, when I was laying there in the back of my truck in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, that one decision to go back and to follow that feeling and that prompting that I had completely changed my life. I mean, completely changed the direction of my entire life. Even to this day, ladies and gentlemen, it tremendously changed my life. And had I not responded to that, and if I would have just said, forget it, I'm going back to Arizona, I wouldn't have had all these amazing life-changing experiences. And I wanted to throw that in here in this last video, ladies and gentlemen, that sometimes one decision can change our life so drastically. And so it's important that we listen to those promptings and those feelings, and then we act on them. Because I'm living proof that that one decision changed my life so drastically. It gave me so much self-confidence to get on in front of the world and make videos and use my voice and talk to people. And it was you guys, every single one of you that are on here tonight, and I see all these hearts going by and I see your comments going by, but it was so many of you who gave me that confidence. And I want to say thank you, guys. I want to say thank you. Because you can go back and watch any of my videos and you can see the tremendous growth that has happened in my life. And I want to say thank you. Because, guys, you guys never gave up on me. You guys were always there, loving me, you know, commenting, watching my videos, praying for me. So thank you so very much. I'm indebted to you guys. And the least I can do tonight is just offer my humble gratitude for everything that you guys have done for me. So, getting back to that day, you know, Barry Morphew goes by. I see him. I know it's him 100%. I know it's him. I see his face. He goes by. I see the Indiana license plate on his truck. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you know the rest of the story. It's all history. But together, we were able to do a tremendous thing. We were able to do a tremendous service for Suzanne's family. And as you guys know, I got a thank you card in the mail a couple of Christmases ago from Suzanne Morphew's sister, Melinda, and her husband. She sent me a Christmas card and thanked me for everything that I've done. But really, it should have been a thank you card for all of you guys, for all of us together, because I did just a little bit. You guys did most of it. You did all the legwork. All you hardworking mothers and women from Salida who remain behind the scenes and who are anonymous. And there's a lot of you. You guys were the ones who put in the work. All I did was get on here and make videos. But see, that's the way the universe and that's the way that God works. God knew what I needed, and God knew what you needed, and God knew what these moms needed, and He was able to make that happen for every single one of us. And hopefully we've all grown through this process together, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you've grown as much as I have. It's been a wonderful ride. It's been an incredible experience. And it would be so much more disappointing if Barry Morphew wasn't sitting in a jail cell right now in Alamosa, Colorado. If he was in Arizona somewhere, or if he was in Indiana, you know, just out hanging out at bars and hitting on women, drinking beer, or whatever he's doing, just living it up, it would be a lot less satisfying. But he's not, ladies and gentlemen. He's in a jail cell in Alamosa, Colorado, and a lot of it is because of you and the things that you were able to do. We all listened to those promptings. Once I got there and I got that interview with Barry, that's kind of what set everything in motion, really, because it was so early on. And it got out into the media, and it got out into other podcasters and YouTubers, Mike King and Gonzo and these other guys. I can't remember all their names. There was a Kurt from somewhere up there. He was making these cartoons and these videos, and then pretty soon we got Linda. We got this lady, Linda, that had a true crime channel, and she was big, and she had like 100,000 followers or something, and so she started talking about it. And then we got Nancy Grace, and then we got all these other people. Then pretty soon, Dateline, you know, and so it just exploded, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not on here trying to say that I'm taking any type of credit for it. I give all the credit and the glory to God and our Heavenly Father and to all of you guys, because collectively, ladies and gentlemen, none of this could have happened without all of us working together. And I'm just so very grateful. I'm grateful for all of it. And it's not over yet. And you guys are probably wondering why this is my last YouTube if it's not over yet, if the trial is still pending and all that. It's because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't want to do true crime. My heart's not in it anymore. I don't have a passion and a desire for it. I've grown into another person. I went in a different direction. I'm on to other things. I have a different passion. Something different's burning in my soul now. But more than anything, I want justice for Suzanne and her family, and it looks like we're on the verge of getting that. So I'll continue to watch, and I'll continue to participate from the sidelines, but this is going to be my very last YouTube video. And I hope I tied all of this stuff together and gave you guys more background. My very last hope, ladies and gentlemen, in all of this is not just for Suzanne, but my very last hope is that someday I can have a relationship with my daughter. And one of the reasons, or I should say this, one of the things that helped me overcome my shyness and my reluctance to make videos and get on here and speak out is I wanted my daughter to see the real me. I wanted her to get to know me and to get on the internet and say, you know, who's my dad and what is he all about? Because all I hear about him is these lies and all this stuff that the family's saying, or this small town and people that weren't telling her the truth. I wanted her to see the truth. I wanted her to see the real me and see that I have a good heart, that I'm a good person, that I'm not this evil person, not this bad person at all. In fact, I'm just the opposite of that. I'm a good person who believes in helping people and doing good things in the world. And so I hope that not only we get justice for Suzanne, but somewhere along the way that my daughter sees all of these videos and she can see who I am and what I'm about. And that if by the grace of God, she likes who I am, she loves me, and she reaches out someday when she gets old enough, she picks up the phone or she reaches out somehow and says, Dad, I want to be in your life. I want to be a part of your life, Dad. I want to get to know you. Because I want you to know, Jersey, I know that you're going to see these videos someday. I want you to know, Jersey, that I have missed you every single second of every single day. And I've loved you unconditionally every second of every day. I want you to know that. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'm going to wrap up my video. I'm going to wrap up my YouTube channel. And look, it's been almost an hour, and that's what I wanted to stay on here for. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care at this moment. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I don't care what your political beliefs are at this point. I know I get on TikTok, and I know you guys have probably seen, a lot of you have probably seen my TikTok channel. I get on there and I fight, and I'm very passionate about what I believe, and I say a lot of things that I mean, you know, and I mean every bit of it. But in this moment, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I want each of you to know that I love you and I appreciate you. And I hope that through this entire journey that we've had together, that you'll learn a couple things and that you'll be inspired. Number one, never give up. I don't know what your situations are right now. I don't know what trials you face, but trust me, ladies and gentlemen, if you're living in your car in the Walmart parking lot, or you're going through a divorce, or you're missing your child, whether it be from lies and whatever, you know, separation, or you're suffering the loss of a loved one yourself, and you have grief and pain and whatever your trials are, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to encourage you to never give up. Continue to fight and continue to push forward and continue to look for ways to lift up and inspire other people. And I promise you, if you do that, that your life will be blessed. And it will be blessed far beyond what you're doing for other people. And I am living proof of that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up my entire YouTube channel. It's been an amazing journey. I love and appreciate you guys so much. And I pray for you. I wish nothing but the best for all of you moving forward. God bless you. Take care.